Very good. So it's being recorded, everyone. So welcome to today's webinar. Now, this is a really big topic and there's far more content than we can possibly cover in the 1 hour we have together today. And it is important we cover as much as possible, but it's also we cover a lot of stuff that's relevant to you. So please make use of the question chat box during the webinar. And during the webinar, we'll make some time to come off mute and take some questions as well. Now, this webinar has been put together for you because Wendy had a lot of inquiries after the pitch night we put together. Now, Chris Ryan is online as well today. Now, he hosted that pitch night with us. And a lot of people saw the pitches and realised that pitching isn't all that easy to do sometimes. It's not easy to find opportunities to practice your pitch. And there's not a lot of information out there either. Now, there are some pitch deck templates. There are a few resources to help you with your structure, but there's not a lot to help you get on top of your messaging and really get your head in the game. And, you know, if you don't get it right, well, you're not necessarily going to get the engagement you want to. You might not get any customers. If it goes really badly, you could even be embarrassed up there, which some of us have done before. And in 2021, heading into 2022, some of you might have spent a lot of time on Zoom. And live audiences might not be something you're used to. Now, when you do get in front of a live audience, perhaps those nerves will make you freeze or go blank or forget what you were going to say, possibly run off topic. And if you run off topic, then you're probably going to run out of time. The most important information that you are going to deliver might get left out. You just might not get to it. Some of you might forget to ask the audience for what you're after, whether you're looking to sell to them or you're looking for investment from them, or just change their mindset around something they're doing in their life. You might forget that ask, which is a really important part of pitching. And coming across authentic and natural is really important to most of you. And you may think that a good way to go is just go off the cuff, be a bit natural, relaxed. And it doesn't matter if you're in front of one person or in front of a crowd. You might find that when you are trying to pitch to someone, it's not a completely natural situation for many of you to be in, particularly it's in front of a large crowd. And for some people, it's at that moment they realise that when they're not in a natural position, when they're not in a natural environment, it's very difficult to come across natural and authentic. And at that moment, when you're standing on stage, perhaps sometimes it's a bit too late to realise that the best way to come across naturally and authentically is to practice so that you're comfortable with your content before you get out on stage. And with all the potential for failure, for pain that can come when you do pitch in front of a live audience, it's easy to see why some people have that real fear of pitching their products and service in front of a live audience, why they might have a fear of public speaking. And until you have the tools and skills and the ability to do it well, it's hard to understand just how exhilarating it can be. I mean, you know, when you've pitched well in front of an audience, especially a large audience, one of the most exciting things that you can do. I mean, you just imagine that feeling when you're coming off stage, or you might remember it. You're proud and excited about the prospects that are coming your way, knowing that you've represented yourself and your company, your organisation well. Perhaps even getting that massive cheer from the audience. And all of this is entirely possible, in fact, quite probable, if you get that practice and that preparation right. So I guess the question we need to ask ourselves is, how do we get that practice and preparation right? What do we need to prepare if we're going to pitch in front of a live audience? And I think a lot of people spend a lot of time focusing on what they do in their business and the thing they're pitching. But the very first step you're going to need to cover, the very first thing you're going to need to do in your preparation is to actually deeply understand who the most important person in the conversation is. Because you're having a conversation with the audience when you're pitching. And if you're entirely focused on you, if your pitch and your presentation is all about you and not engaging your audience, then it's very likely you're going to miss the mark. And you also need to know why you're talking to them. And the ins and outs of this we'll get to in just a moment, but it's important to know that the audience is the first port of call. If you're going to pitch, the very first thing you need to understand is your audience. You need to understand you might have multiple audiences and you might be pitching to those audiences at different times. If you're a startup, then you might be looking for customers in one pitch and you might be looking for investors in another pitch. You might be looking for government support and grants in a completely separate pitch. If you're looking to hire, expand and grow, you might be pitching yourself as an employer to potential employees. You might be pitching for partnerships with organisations that you might want to collaborate with. So you have all of these different pitches, and it's important to understand that each pitch will be different based on the audience you're speaking to. Now, once we get that right, we need to know where our audience are. Now, you might say, Scott, that's fine. They're in the room. I'm standing up in front of a stage. My audience is in the room. They're in front of me, or I'm standing up, I'm sitting in my office in front of my computer and the audience is on the other side of the camera to me, on the other side of the screen. But it goes far deeper than that. One of the things that you're really going to need to understand is where they are. Now, you need to understand where they are mentally, where they are spiritually, career-wise, relationship-wise, politically, whatever else is relevant to what you're pitching. And the thing is, it sounds quite difficult and quite arduous to go through all of this, but most of you know this. Most of you know your audience quite well. You've designed your products, your services, your experience around your audience. But sometimes when we get to pitching, we're focused so much on what we do, we forget to incorporate where our audience is in relation to the pitch that we're making. And there are three key things we're going to have to move on if we want to move our audiences quite quickly. We need to understand where they're at in terms of their life, in terms of their career, in terms of their business. But the three things that we're going to have to hit on much quicker than anything else is understanding what their pains are. And we're going to just stop for just a moment and see if anyone wants to volunteer what they do quickly and what the pains of their audience are. We need to understand what gives them pleasure, and we need to understand what their needs are as well. Do we have a volunteer? Does anyone want to potentially unmute themselves? We've got a hand up here. Kat.
Hello.
Hey, Kat.
Hey. Thank you for doing this workshop. This is awesome.
No worries.
So what I do is I work with solopreneurs that are usually within their first couple of years of business, primarily coaches and service-based entrepreneurs who are a little bit frustrated that they're awesome at what they do, but just can't seem to get the clients. So right. we work on doing a lot of the deep dive on ideal client, signature program, and then how to put it out into the world.
Very good. So in terms of pains, what are the pains of your clients?
That they're not getting the clients that they want. They're not getting the revenue. And it seems like no matter what they do, it just isn't working. And they're probably at the point that they're wondering if they should quit.
Okay. So we understand our pains of our clients somewhat. Mm-hmm. Does anyone want to raise their hand if they think that we've hit the pains nearly enough there, or we could go deeper? Has anyone got a thought or an opinion on that? Yes.
Hi, my name is Ines and I'm from California, and I work for a mental health institute. So basically some of the trainings that we provide, or because I'm also a certified mental health first aider. So part of what I do is provide training on mental health topics. The issue with my participants would be basically the different challenges that they themselves come across, either with family or with themselves or people they know. So when I try to apply what you were just saying, that I need to be considerate and mindful of the background of whatever the situation or the background of my participants, then that might be a little bit complicated with regards to mental health, because each of them is coming to the training with a different reason that is not necessarily obvious.
We'll get to that in just a moment. But let's go back to Kat's pains. Now, Kat said people aren't getting the clients. Is that deep enough? Because I think we've just scratched the surface. I think we've, maybe exposed to a superficial pain. Now, what we really need to dig down to is how does this go deeper than this? How does this affect their life beyond the? Would you mind muting yourself just for a second? We'll just cover this next little bit of topic, and we'll come back to you in a sec, Kat, if that's all right. But beyond not getting the clients, what does that actually mean? We've all sat in the car, no doubt, with a petulant child in the back who's just, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? And ask the question over and over again. And every time you answer that question, you will go deeper and deeper and deeper into the potential pains of your clients. Like, what does it mean if they don't have enough clients? Does it mean that their business might not go further? Does it mean that they might have to take other work that they're trying to move away from? Does it mean they might have to shut the doors completely? Does it mean they won't get to help the people they wanted to help? Does it mean they won't be able to pay their mortgage, put food on the table, provide for their family? Can you see we can go deeper and deeper and deeper into these pains? Would you mind raising your hand if you can see that, if this is starting to make sense, so we can, but we need to dig deeper than just the surface level. So we've got one hand up, Lynn. But we've got a thumbs up too. Thank you, Sarah. We need to get down to the pains that really affect people, really drive people's emotions, really make people react, rather than just give some analytical thought to these potential pains. Now, this is something that we normally cover off a lot more in the one-on-one sessions, because it takes some time digging into it and helping you understand it. Yes, you are completely right. If you talk to people's pains and you're not very careful about it, then one of two things can happen. One, you're going to miss the mark and people are going to check out. They're going to say, no, that's not for me. I don't need to worry about that. Or secondly, it's going to come across like you're attacking people. For example, if you were to take pitching and public speaking as an example, if you were to say to someone, look, your public speaking is not very good, your pitch needs some work, you're not going to get clients. It's very attacking, isn't it? Does that make sense? But if we were to just soften that a little bit and give people a way of opting in or opting out, because the other thing is, in a group dynamic, you might hit someone's pains, but they might not want to put their hand up to it in front of everyone. Does that make sense? In a group dynamic, you might say, yes, that's me, but I don't want to tell the rest of the room that that's the problem I'm going through. I don't mind dealing with this afterwards. I perhaps would like a one-on-one with somebody, but I don't want to actually stand up in front of the room and say, no, I'm not pitching very well. I don't have confidence. Perhaps when you pitch, you get a little bit nervous. Maybe, you're not getting the clients you want. It could be that means that you're not earning enough money. Maybe that's going to affect you long-term. Maybe it's affecting more than just you. It's affecting the other people in your life. So can we see if we just add some softening words in there and give people an option to either opt in or opt out of that pain? We can really change the dynamic and allow people to stay in, even in painful conversations, by checking out a little bit or not admitting in front of the group that that's a problem that they've got to see you for. So that's a little bit off topic, but anyway, that's one of the things that happens. Has that answered your question, Ines? So you can raise a number of pains around those people, provided you structure it so they can check in and check out. It will mean that you can still retain them in your conversation, but you can capture everybody in the room. Very good.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we understand what their pains are. We need to understand what gives them pleasure, what gives them joy, what are the things that they're looking for in their life, and we need to know what they need. Now, the thing is, at one point in time, we never needed an iPad. We never needed an iPod, a music player, a telephone, and a computer in our pocket. But somebody made us need it. So we need to understand what people need. Even if they don't need it, we need to understand how we can make sure that they believe they need it. And the next thing we must do is, once we document this and we put it down on paper and we develop our pitch, we need to make sure that this information is actually included in your pitch because it gets left out so often. The information in your pitch is often so much about you and your company and what you do and your systems and your procedures and your tech and how you're so much better than your competitors, the audience is missing. So make sure your audience's pains, their wants and their needs are included in your pitch. And to do this, we use an analogy, and I call it the Uber taxi model. Now, or Uber or taxi model. Now, for some of you, you might have heard the Uber pitch and how they structured your pitch, and this isn't what we're talking about there. Uber or taxi, depending on where you are in the world. What we need to do is realize that when we're pitching, we are actually trying to move people. It's pointless pitching to someone that is already sold on your product, already decided they're going to buy. You know, you're really going out and talking to people that, you know, are either not sold on your product or tech or experience or whatever it is you're creating. Or if you're pitching something different, maybe you're pitching, you know, some community engagement, maybe you're pitching for people to be socially more responsible. But the idea behind your pitch is that you start pitching your product, your service, your idea to an audience who's not sold on what you're proposing, and by the end of the pitch, they've changed at least some way towards accepting what you're putting out there. And we call it the Uber taxi model is because a lot of people miss some of the first steps, and relating it to an Uber ride or a taxi ride is a really good way of understanding how you can restructure your pitch to really have that impact. Because I don't know if this is clear, but it's a destination icon from maps. But this is where many people start their pitch. And you would have seen it. You would have gone to many events and people would have talked all about themselves. And once you buy our product, this is going to happen. It's going to be wonderful. And they start at the destination. But this doesn't work for an Uber or a taxi, does it? Now, if you think about, you know, there's an event on tomorrow night. Now, we're probably going to get an Uber to that. It's no good the Uber going straight to the destination, which is what most people do with their pitch. If the Uber is going to be successful and help move us from where we are to where we need to be, Uber needs to come to us first. And after the Uber comes to us, then we need, you know, some sort of road. We see that the road is a strategy for us to get from where we are to where we need to be. And we also need, and basically we need a vehicle to get there as well, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But if we go back and look at the passenger pickup point, where are your audience? The very first slides we were talking about. If your pitch doesn't capture the audience, if you don't talk about pitching, like for example, in this presentation, pitching and the difficulty people have with pitching and why they struggle. And if we don't remind people of those pains that exist in their life, then they tend to gloss over where we're at. All the facts and figures get included in what we do, but not necessarily all of the things that create emotion and make people react. Because here's the thing. You can put all the facts and the figures in your presentation that you like. They might be brilliant facts and figures. They might prove that you have the best product, service, experience out there, the best model, the best idea, the best economic model, whatever it is you're pitching. It might stand head and shoulders above everything else. But when you put those facts and figures in there, one thing you're going to do is you're going to start people thinking. They're going to be processing what's going on in their mind. And as they think, you're in danger of getting this analysis paralysis, if you like. I mean, it's not a term that I coined, it's one that's been around for a long time, but you know, people will start to think and overthink things. But there is a much more primal side to our brains, a much more raw side that gets us moving without even thinking. I mean, if we go back to maybe 2010, if you were driving down Kennahan's Road, just behind our house here, then you would have seen a bloke running along the road trying to get fit. Magpie season. Give us a wave or whatever. If you know what magpies are, ever been swooped by magpies? A few hands there waving, yeah. So you might have been swooped by magpies. So you would know that it's absolutely terrifying. So when I saw the shadow of a magpie coming along the ground, because I was running along with my head down trying to gasp for air, when I saw the shadow of a magpie coming down, I dived on the floor. Now, if you were driving down the road, you would have seen a bloke dive on the floor for absolutely no reason. In my head, I was trying to avoid a magpie swoop. There was no thought around diving on the ground. There was no thought around trying to avoid pain. It was of a magpie flying into my head and whatever, splitting. There was no thought about that. It was just an instant reaction. I mean, this is what we're genetically made up to do. We're genetically made up to avoid pain, seek pleasure, and do it in the most efficient way possible, which we'll get to in just a second. When I looked up, because I thought the magpie would have passed, and I know that they normally come back for a second swoop, all of a sudden I realised that we live in a flight path, and it was a Qantas plane heading for the airport. But the shadow on the ground was enough that it made me think it was a magpie. You see, these are just instant reactions. Now, if someone had have talked to me about, the percentage chance of a magpie actually hitting me in the head, or, I would have thought about it, but, that tapped into a real raw reaction. And this hit home for me just several years ago. I was involved in one of the university, I was a participant in one of the university programs where we had to pitch an idea. Now, everybody said to me, Scott, you're never going to win. Your product is too complex, it's too difficult, it's difficult to understand, it's very relevant to the plumbing industry, so not everyone's going to kind of get it. So let's not worry about winning the competition, let's just worry about doing a good job. And I thought, no, I'm not really going to be happy with that. That's not where I'm at. I don't want to come second best. So one of the things that become apparent is that if you're going to pitch, particularly something complex, you want to hit into those raw emotions, make people think about things. You want to make this more about the audience than it is about me, and it is about my product. And that's where all of this stuff starts to come from. You need to think about what goes on beyond the technical stuff around your products and services. So we have the pickup point. First thing we're going to do is go to understand that customer. We need to go and pick them up. Our pitch needs to talk to them. Second thing we need to do is we need to move to that destination. And the third thing we need to do is we need some sort of vehicle to take us there. And we call that the taxi. Now that taxi is what we call the tripart motivational system. That's that where we avoid pain, we seek pleasure, and we do it in the most efficient way possible. Give us a bit of a hands up or a bit of a wave, or stick your hands up in the question chat box. But give us a bit of a hands up or a bit of a wave if you may have done a pitch and not told people that by using your products, using your services, creates far more efficiency. You're going to save someone some energy. Maybe you've said, yeah, I think we all have. Maybe you've told someone about your products and service, but you haven't let them know that, hey, the most efficient way to achieve the outcome you're looking at is by engaging with me. Now, I'm saving you time, I'm saving you money, money's conservation of energy too. If you're earning $100 an hour, well, surely you want to go to the person that can, that is cost effective. Because if the next client is $200, $300, $400, $500 an hour, well, it means you've got to work 5 times as long to pay for that service. So that conservation of energy is another really, really important thing. Okay, facts and figures, emotional reactions. So the next thing we need to do is maybe handle some of the objections. If we handle some of the objections, then we're dealing with people's critical side of the brain. That's going to say, no, this is not a good idea. This is a bad idea. But we never, ever put that ahead of hitting those emotional pain points for people's pitch. Okay. We're about halfway through. So what we might do is just open the room up and talk about what we've covered so far. If anyone's got any questions or wants to elaborate on that, and we'll look for some specific examples of how we might be able to help anyone. And then we'll move on to how to structure your pitch. Is that okay? So anyone that wishes to unmute, we'll try and keep it orderly. We don't have such a full room today, so yeah. Is there anyone that would like to share an experience, talk about something that we've covered today, something that's relevant, something that hasn't made sense, something that needs further clarification? Is there anyone online that's got a question for me?
I've got a bit of a comment.
Paul!
Yes, I think you sort of glossed over it a bit, but you probably could emphasise a bit more what your pitch needs to be very easy to digest, particularly with the attention span of a lot of audiences, as well as having that in your first slide, make sure you hit all the pain points, show that you understand their business and their needs. What you say needs to be very, very easy to digest. The point I guess you were making before about statistics and technical stuff, that's not necessarily easy to digest. So I think just clarifying on your point, what you say needs to be very simple, easy to pick up on.
Yeah, very good. I mean, I think if you leave out all of the technical stuff, then you might not have credibility. It might come across as a bit simple. So yeah, you need your technical stuff in there as well. But we'll get on to structure in just a moment, and then how to practice, how to actually, some shortcuts to actually get you to remember your pitch and get it delivered in the way you want it to. Was that it, Paul, or was there some other questions there?
No, that was it. Just emphasising.
Very good. So what I might emphasise too is when Paul spoke to you, then the focus was on you as an audience. I don't know if anyone's picked up on that. Raise your hand, give us a shout. Whatever wave have you noticed that? Yeah, a few of you are starting to notice. Yeah. Paul spoke to you as an audience, you as individuals. Just think about this for a minute. Look, does anyone want to have a guess as to how many people there drive a black car? Would anyone know the answer? No, it's an annoying question, isn't it? When you talk to an audience, you need to talk to one person. You're effectively speaking to individuals. All of you are sitting there individually. If you're going to make a decision, it's going to be a decision as an individual. So when you address an audience, address your audience as individuals, one person. Address an audience as an audience, but your language should reflect you're talking to one person. Okay, so just to clarify, your language needs to be to speak to one person. I just might jump forward a little bit to a recent incident that really highlighted that. I think it was only about a week ago, and if you're in the Switch Start Scale offices, you would have seen a guy, we'll call him Sam for now, come in. And Sam come for pitch coaching, and Sam was saying, Scott, when I go out and pitch myself, whether it's in a networking event or, I might speak at a breakfast, I'll talk to the audience and, people will come up and say, look, Sam, you need to talk to my brother. You need to talk to my, aunt, or you need to talk to my son, my wife, my husband. Scott, nobody wants to accept that they might need my help themselves. They all want it for somebody else. Now, what I might do is just, if you can just maybe, while you muted yourself, just grab your phone and just record a quick 30-second pitch of what you would say. Write it down. I don't care, how you want to record it, but just document what you would normally say if you were talking to an audience. Maybe it could be one person at a networking event. Just quickly, 30 seconds, jot that down. Think about the things that you would say if you were pitching yourself. And it seems you're all writing, so I might continue to talk through this content as you write that down. So what we did is Sam took out his phone and recorded his pitch. Told me exactly what he would say to an audience as, if he went to a networking event and was speaking to someone one-on-one, that was a scenario that Sam chose. And we had a bit of a discussion about where he might go after his pitch, who he might talk to, and then we played the pitch back. And I said to Sam, what I need you to do is every time you talk about yourself, slap your leg. Every time you talk about somebody outside this room, point out the window. And every time you talk to me, point to me. Now, when Sam played his pitch back on his Samsung phone, Sam said, I'm Sam and I'm from, and talked all about himself, and then started to tell me about the people he helped. Now, all of those people were outside the room. Every single one of those people were outside the room. Maybe in a networking event, someone's mother or their brother or their aunt or their uncle would be there, but they wouldn't necessarily be in that conversation. So they're outside of that conversation. And when we played the pitch back and he slapped himself on the leg half a dozen times, pointed out the window half a dozen times, maybe more, and then pointed to me right at the very end when it was like, hey, if you need my help, then you can purchase my services. So the only time he was pointing to me was, for payment kind of thing. I think the penny dropped, but I'm not sure. And as a coach, it's your job to basically highlight these things and make sure they're explicit to your customers, same as it is to highlight what you're talking about in your pitch and make sure it's explicit to your customers. And I said, Sam, after you've listened to that pitch and you've heard how much you've talked about yourself, how much you've talked about people outside this room, and then for just a brief moment, you've mentioned me when it comes to payment, can you now understand why your audience are saying you should speak to somebody else outside of this room? And funnily enough, just that change in language, that change that basically meant that Sam is saying you and your more often, he's saying I and me and they and them, and talking about people that aren't here, has made a massive difference to the way people engage with him. He's getting more clients within a week. So if you change nothing else, if you change absolutely nothing else, change your language. Use the language your clients are using and make sure you flip every sentence round to talk about you, about your audience, not yourself. Because it's not that hard to do, really. Thanks for the thumbs up. Because I could stand here and I could say, look, when I talk to my audience, one of the things I like to do is I like to make sure that they're the focus of my conversation. And it's the same message. But when you talk to your audience, one of the things that you need to do is make sure that your audience is the focus of your conversation. You can say the same thing. It takes a little bit of practice. You do it often enough, and it will just become natural for you. If you can raise this with some people around you, some of the closest people around you that you talk to on a regular basis, then you can do it together. Now, I could have said they can help you, but that's about somebody else outside this room. If you do this with somebody that's close to you, you can do it together. Okay, structuring your pitch. How do you structure your pitch? Anyone got any suggestions? Well, in your preparation, what I'm going to suggest is the first thing you do is you just dump all of the information out of your brain as quick as you can. Just get it all out there. And I can guarantee you, if you've got a 5-minute pitch, you're going to have 15, 20 minutes worth of content because there's so much to say. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually break that down and work out what's not really necessary. What can we combine? What can we say more efficiently? And then we're going to start to concentrate on actually how many words we can put into our pitch. Because if we're pitching at a good rate, if we're talking at a good rate, we will be at no more than about 120 words a minute. So if you've got a 5-minute pitch, that's about 680 words. Now, to put that into context, if you're thinking scientists reckon you're thinking about 800 words a minute. Reading in your head, 250 to 300 words a minute for the average person, maybe 1,500 words if you're a speed reader. So if you're trying to fit 250 words, a slow reading pace, into a minute, into a pitch, then effectively it's going to be like getting one of those YouTube videos and playing it on double speed. Now, I'm not sure if anyone's ever done that, but it's not really how you want to come across in your pitch. I mean, it's a very handy feature for absorbing information quickly. But the other thing, by getting all the information out of your head, dumping it, deciding what's most important, and then finding efficiencies in saying things, maybe even say two things together, will allow you to make a conscious decision about what you're going to leave out of your pitch. Because if we go back to those figures before, if you're thinking at roughly 800 words a minute and you're speaking at 120, after the first minute, what's your brain? 680 words ahead of you. So now for many of you, what you'll start to do is you'll start to try and add those 680 words in somewhere. That brilliant idea you've had in that 60 seconds of speaking is going to try and fit into your pitch somewhere. And that might be at the expense of something else that's really, really important, something else that gets missed. Because if you're at the Innovation Factory pitch night, you would have seen that most people ran out of time. If you go to most pitch events, you'll see that when people have the first few goes at pitching, they really do run out of time when they're trying to pitch. Okay, any comments on that? Has anyone got any comments on talking to your audience, shifting your language, dumping all the information out there, and then refining your pitch?
Yeah, I think that makes super sense, especially the 800 to 120. Because whenever you're talking, you've got all these things, you go through, and then you're like, hold on, I could add this and add that and add that. And yeah, that makes total sense, those numbers. Thanks, Scott. So
just making that conscious decision about what you're going to leave out. I mean, you can leave it out with confidence then. You don't have to be worried about, and maybe if you're smart about it, some of those things that you would want to add in normally, what you can do is you can maybe seed them, poke them, put them out there for people to see a little bit. If you want to know more about this, then you can ask me later. Look, I don't have time to cover all of this content, but we don't have time to cover these particular features. But if you really want to know about them, I'll be happy to talk about them. So rather than spend a minute and a half talking about a particular feature, you can just put it out there and encourage a conversation. Because let's face it, if you're pitching, you're only going to move people one step. So many people think, I'm going to go and pitch and I'm going to move my clients from where they are to from Sydney to Adelaide. They're going to pull them out of COVID-stricken Sydney and move them to Adelaide in one pitch. It's not going to happen. You're only going to move people so far in one pitch. Maybe the best you can hope for with some of your pitches is to move people to a second conversation. That's a good outcome.
I've got a question.
Okay. Sorry, has someone had a question or?
Yeah, I've got
one.
Yes. Just a quick one. What are your thoughts on incorporating a picture or a really short video?
I would say never rely on tech. Tech has let me down in pictures. I suppose, in fairness, once I learned to structure pictures a bit better, tech has let me down more often than I've let myself down. So I wouldn't rely on the tech. Yes, you can have it there, but if you're going to include any tech, particularly video, you want a backup plan. You always want a backup plan. You want to know how you're going to deliver that content if that video fails. Yes, images, awesome. Sorry, Paul?
What about a straight picture or diagram?
Pictures, diagrams, yeah, very, 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 very good. Very, very, they do. What sort of thing would you normally pitch, Paul?
Sorry, I've got a project. It's a technical project, and the way I'd tackle it was, I'd start with a picture or a diagram, because I find that's much quicker and much easier for people to digest. If I show something, it's just a diagram and it's oh, okay, this is what he's talking about, rather than coming with a.
Yeah, great. And I mean, the thing is, if you know the diagram well enough, and you've got a texter and some butcher's paper, just in case the tech fails, it puts you in a far better position. If you never have to use it, fine. But just having that confidence going forward is a really really important thing. So, I mean, your structure is going to help with your confidence. It's going to help with your authenticity. The reason structure is going to help you with your authenticity is because, I'll get to you in just a sec, Kat. The reason structure is going to help you with your authenticity is because if you structure what you're going to say, so I'm going to start with X and then move to Y, and then I'm going to start with the pains and I'm going to move to what potentially people are going to get, and then we're going to work about through our system or if you've got the structure and you're just thinking about the structure, you don't have to worry about remembering all of the words. You just need to talk to your structure, and that way you will come across a lot more authentically than trying to read a script or trying to remember a script. When we write, we tend to write in a very different way to how we would naturally speak, authentically speak. So structuring your pitch in such a way that you don't actually have to remember those words will really help you, particularly if your pitch is longer than that sort of 5-minute pitch. If you've got a half hour or a 90-minute workshop with a pitch built into it, that it will give you a lot more flexibility. It will help you remember the content a lot better, and it will really help you with your authenticity as well. Kat, you had a question.
Pardon me, actually just a comment. When I do my presentations, I'll usually put things together as like bullet points with keywords that just remind me what it is that I want to talk about. But I was also going to say that it really goes back to what you were saying in the very beginning of going off the cuff is not necessarily natural, and making the suggestion that maybe setting yourself, if you're going to be doing a Zoom presentation, set up your own Zoom chat with just yourself and just do the presentation. And you can go back and watch it, or video yourself on your phone, whatever. But then you can go back, watch your pitch, and say, okay, this was good, that was too much about me, oh, I want to include this thing. And then you can revamp that. And if you do that multiple times, I mean, I think they used to say that Steve Jobs would rehearse his pitches when he was launching a new item for like over 2 months before he actually did the event. So just doing that several times will actually get it to flow a lot more easily and naturally.
Very good. And Victoria, I see you've got your hand up there.
Hi, yeah, I was just wondering, you'd mentioned earlier on about the talking to your audience, and it's an audience that have got different pain points, but your language is to one person. But on the pain points, so my audience, if it was like a room or if it's just a person, their pain point could be different. A little bit like a topic that was, I think, maybe mentioned earlier. So I find it hard then to know how deep to go with that pain. So I to explain, I'm a money coach, and so I'm helping people with everyday money management. And so the way that I might help you versus you versus you might just be, one of you might just be wanting to like check in and go, could I be doing this better? Another one of you could be in debt to your eyeballs, and could all be a disaster.
Okay, so let's go. So you might have come along to this workshop today because you just want to check in, understand if what you're doing is right. Maybe make sure you're not missing out on some of the latest tech or features or strategies. But then again, you might be, I don't know, where else might somebody else be?
Sure. So but so the idea then though, because you could, right, I get that, then you could use the pain, you could literally say the examples, whether you're wanting to just see if you could be doing better, or whether your debt's becoming a problem, I'm here for you, blah, 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 whatever it is, right? But I was thinking that in a pitch, you're trying to be like short, like the elevator pitch, it's 30 seconds a minute. So how do you, and we've talked in a few minutes ago, you were saying about it being like 5 minutes or it being longer, but if you're kind of introducing yourself, you're a networking event. I thought the idea was about it being,
Okay, well, let's see. How would you go, Victoria? What would you normally say?
Hi, my name is Victoria. I help people with everyday money management. Money should be simple, but somewhere along the way it got hard. If you find yourself juggling it, I'm here to help you do money better.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Okay. So you could start that with something like, if you or someone you know wants to manage money better. So
I get, if I could just say, that's what I've been saying. And some people have said about being kind of more specific or getting more to where the target is. But then, and you're saying similar, but then how do you, if your target could be effectively different, then how do you...
Okay. Give me 3 targets.
Wanting to check in, disastrous debt, no savings.
What was the last one, sorry?
No savings.
No savings, yeah. Okay, if you or someone you know wants to manage your money better, maybe it's you just want to check in and see whether what you're doing is right, or you could be in a position where you've got disastrous debt.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that bad. Maybe you've not got the debt, but you're just not managing to get on top of your savings.
Sure.
Or if you'd like to change the way you do things,
yeah,
yeah, maybe a strategy or 2 in there. So it's just shifting the language. So because now the person you're talking to is the most important person in the conversation. I mean, you're sold on what you do, definitely. Money management, you don't get it right, it's not good. Yeah. So you're sold on what you do, Victoria.
Yeah. And I think maybe then I focused on it being just like, oh my God, how you were saying before about like, if you can say it in less words, try and say it. And so you've kind of gone, there's 3 examples, but you just go, do money better, but then that's not, that's too much. So I just need to let there be a few more words in there.
Well, I mean, in a conversation, it's like, you don't limit the number of words you have in a response, do you? If you can make it more conversational, if you're going to allow people to opt in, opt out, then it's not so bad. Do you know what I mean? It's not difficult to listen to. The pictures that are really difficult to listen to are when people are trying to hand their, basically they carry their junk round like a badge of honor on their shoulder and they're trying to hand it to you. They're the worst ones. But when it's optional, it's like, hey, if you want to come along, if you don't, it's much softer and easier to listen to. Yeah.
Right. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Where do we go? We've got 10 minutes left. So yeah, practicing. Anyone got any tips on practicing? Kat come up before and said maybe record your presentation on Zoom. I've never thought about using Zoom before, but if you're going to practice, bearing in mind we talked about the speed in which you think, the speed in which you read. If you're going to practice and get your words, your tonality, everything down pat, what's the most important thing? Surely someone's going to be able to tell me what's the most important thing if you're going to practice. Should I do it in my head?
Do it out loud and practice saying.
Do it out loud. Yeah, I'm getting the out loud. Practicing out loud is the most important thing you can do. Everybody has a recorder on them now. So just recording simple, audio is fine. But give us a wave if there's a song. Like, what are some songs? Anyone know the words to a song from when they were a teenager? Is anyone still a teenager in the room? Maybe not. Does anyone know the words to a song from when they were a teenager? You don't have to. I'm not going to ask you to sing.
Raindrops.
Raindrops. Yeah, and you could recall that song from all those years ago, and it would come on, and I don't know if you like singing in front of a crowd, Lynn, but maybe you could just start to sing that song if you're on your own, by yourself, maybe. No, you don't sing?
I actually just put in the chat, I can sing songs perfectly in my head, right tune, right tone, right, everything sounds just like the radio. And then I sing it out loud. That's like, yeah, okay, where did that come from?
Yeah, for me, it's dancing. You drive along in the car and, the song comes on and you go, oh, when I'm at a party and this song comes on, I feel it in my body. I've got the moves for it. But when you get there, it's you know, it doesn't quite, you know, it doesn't quite come out the same as what you thought it was going to. It's kind of like not practicing your, you know, maybe if I'd practice the dancing a bit more, you know, not sitting in my van, you know, my van seat, maybe I'd do better at the dancing on the dance floor. But if you've got to practice, you know, out loud is the most important thing. And just by recording it and effectively singing along to it, you're going to remember it. Record it, sing along to it, particularly, and break it down into sections. When you first started to learn, you know, not to learn to sing a song, when you first learned the words to a song, it was probably by singing the chorus first, the part that gets repeated 3, 4, 5 times. And then you start to slowly pick up the first verse, the second verse, and, you know, you tend to pick up the whole lot in chunks. So, I mean, if you get a new song that comes along, maybe you'll pay a bit more attention to that. If there's a new song that comes on the radio that you like, maybe you'll start to understand how that works in your head. You'll get the chorus first. You'll go, yeah, I like that. You'll learn the first couple of lines. You might learn the first section and the next section, but just breaking it down into sections, getting them right, and singing along to it. So you put your earbuds in. Now, I notice Chris has got his earbuds on there. I don't know if you can all see each other, but Chris has got his earbuds in there. So, you know, just, you don't have to broadcast it to the world. So listening to it's good. But when you do get those moments, maybe when you're in the car, maybe when you're home by yourself, or, you know, anytime you find a moment, just talking along with yourself will help you get your pitch down pat. Now, here's the thing. When you first record it on your voice recorder, and I've got some terrible pictures here. Like, I've got some absolutely terrible presentations. I could show you that I've recorded, and the tonality is awful and the pausing is awful. And I just think, oh my gosh, how am I possibly going to deliver this? But if you get the words right, then in the moment, the tonality will flow a lot better. But if you've got enough time in your preparation, record it, get your words right. Once you get your words right, focus on how you're going to say it. Focus on how you would say it if you're saying it naturally and authentically. How would you say it to your friend in across a coffee table? So, you know, first of all, record it out loud. The other thing that works really well, particularly once you get beyond knowing the words. Once you know the words, you're fine. But once you get beyond that, listening with one earbud in, then the other earbud in, and both earbuds together will really help you send a message to both sides of your brain. I mean, scientists have discovered that the left and the right ears do process sounds differently. You know, the right ear responds much more to that speech and logic, and the left ear is more turned into music, emotion, and intuition. So by swapping the earbuds one to the next and listening to it on both sides, not only are you going to remember the words you're going to say, you're going to start to get really in tune with how you want to say it, how, you know, you're going to get empathetic with your audience and understand how they're going to receive your information. Because let's face it, that's the most important thing, audience receiving your information well. So getting those two hemispheres working together is really going to work. Once you get that balance of the emotion and the logic, you know, the chances of you being successful in your pitch are going to be far, far greater. So that recording out loud, once you get to the point where you've recorded it, perhaps the Zoom is something I hadn't really thought about. It's probably far easier than, you know, your computer sitting there. So the Zoom might be far easier, because now you can start to look at your body movement and how is that congruent with what you're saying. Are you, moving awkwardly? Are you, getting lazy, and, are you touching your face and trying to hide what you're doing? So once you get comfortable with that, you might find that the video is really going to help you. And the best thing about it is it all sits on your own device now. It's like, bang, hit delete, gone. Nobody needs to see it again. But the improvements you will make are just absolutely ridiculous. Now we have 5 minutes left, so let's open this up. I'd love to hear from you. Tonality. The other thing, one more thing we haven't really covered, which I might just quickly mention, is when you talk, there's something that is really important if you're going to make an impact with your clients or potential clients. Because if we are pitching to change someone's mind from where they are to a completely new place, then one of the things that we're going to need to do is we're going to need them time to allow them time to absorb that information. Now, getting comfortable with pauses is something that you're going to have to do, particularly when you're talking to a crowd. When you're talking to one-on-one, short pauses often mean that, you know, you'll get to say more because the other person won't get to jump in as often. But when you're up in front of a crowd on a stage, if you're pitching something new, if you're trying to change someone's mindset, if you're trying to make them think about what you might do, or changing suppliers, or anything that requires, you know, some concentration, those pauses are the moments in which they process the information that you've given them. And remember, they're doing it, you know, 7 times faster than what you're speaking. So just getting comfortable with those pauses really allows your audience to potentially change. Okay, let's throw this up open to everybody, and I'd love to hear from anyone who we haven't heard from just yet. Sarah, Sarah, Lynn, who else? Chris Pitcher, anyone there that's that wants to add something, share something? Lynn, please go ahead.
Thanks, Scott. This is awesome and builds on what you've already shared with me. So that's great. Thank you. I have a similar question to Victoria's, except that when I'm pitching to, say, an audience, so for me, it's about people finding their ideal workplace. So when I'm pitching to people who are looking for work, that's one pitch. But if I was pitching to someone who I wanted to invest, say, in you know, how would I create the pain points for them that I would the same pain points? So I'm kind of talking about a different group.
Okay, so what would be the pains for an investor that was going to invest in your business? What are the pain points?
For the investor or for the people?
Well, is that what you're saying? You want someone to invest?
Sorry?
Who would invest? Someone that's typically going to give you money and let you do your thing, or?
Yeah, no, I was thinking more about people, yeah, who perhaps like a grant, it is applying for a grant in technology or something, you know, that I wanted to boost my technology.
Yeah, okay. So that grant would typically come from a government. Yeah, so a state government, yep. Federal government, or yeah, and typically they've got wants and needs, and typically they've given grants out to people that maybe haven't spent the money as well as they could, and you know, they've got to be responsible with, you know, the way every time they give a grant to you, somebody's thrilled to receive it, or, you know, and somebody's upset that they've spent taxpayers' money. So
okay, so I'm specifically talking to the investors' pain points, not my clients' pain points that I'm
always you need to define your audience and work out why you're talking to them.
Yeah,
here's the thing, right? If you're selling, if you're pitching to your ideal customer and your investor at the same time, then you're potentially just creating friction, because you're saying to your investor, look at these great returns we can give you because we can make this margin off of somebody. And then you say, yeah, I mean, and I know it's a little bit different for your, you know, looking for a grant, but, you know, we can make this awesome margin over here. Oh, but if you want to buy a product from us, we can also, you know, we can also sell you a, you know, so that some things just don't go together. And those conversations don't necessarily go together. If you have an audience where there's a potentially a lot of customers and maybe a couple of investors, which is entirely, you know, possible and probable at some point in the future, just make sure you hit the pitch well enough that customers just come on board and go, yes, I want this. Because if enough customers come running to you to buy when you finish your pitch, you know, without you hitting the specific pain points of the investor's going to go, I like that, because, you know, because they recognize their own pain points. Because for most investors, the biggest pain point they've got is that a lot of the startups they invest in just don't have customers and can't get customers. So, you know, you've already addressed one of the biggest ones they've got already. So yeah. Where else are we going? Anyone else have a question? And I've just accidentally hit that.
Is there another message?
Yeah, they drop me down. Anyone else got any questions,
Yes.
comments,
Yes.
something to share?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Was there a hidden message there in what you just said that you should endeavour not to mix your audience types or groups? You don't want investors in with users, or it's preferable not to have them all in the one.
Ideally, you would pitch to an investor separately to a client. Yes, definitely. Ideally, however, you're going to just about take any opportunity you can, because I mean, at the end of the day, you're always ready to sell. You know, if you're in business, if you've got something to pitch, you've just about always got something to sell. So you don't always have control over who's in your audience. You just need to, be as aware as you can, about the audience, who they are, who you might be talking to, so that you can, you can shape your pitch to match your audience as best as possible. What I'm saying is, when you pitch, if you're trying to please everybody, the thing is, if you've got 20 investors in the room and all of them think you're good, well, nobody's really going to move forward with you. That's just the way it is. Nobody's really going to move forward and say, yes, this is a great investment. This is what I want to do. Because what typically happens is everyone thinks you're mediocre and they'll go invest in the ones that they think are fantastic. Now, whenever someone thinks you're fantastic, there's normally somebody that on the other end of the scale that doesn't like you for some reason. So you're going to end up polarizing audiences, most of you, with what you do for some reason or other. I mean, some of it's unjustified. People will hate on you for all sorts of reasons as soon as you start to make an impact. So what I'm saying is, you need to basically just, if you're looking for investment, you just need, to pitch to the investor that's going to invest in you, and you need to make them love you. And there might be other investors that look at you and your risk profile and say, that's just not for me. I really don't like them. I don't like those kind of startups. It's a difficult thing. It's, you don't control who's in your audience all the time, but you just need to match your pitch as best as you can to what you know about them. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, Ines.
Quick one. So when you realize that you missed on a point, like let's say you had a slide, you had it in your mind, you also have your script, because usually I would have my script on a larger screen just next to me. So in case I want to, go to the slide and skim through real quick and take a sneak peek. So when I just take a glance or it flashes into my mind and I realize I forgot that point, is it still acceptable if I'm like maybe 2-3 slides ahead of what I've forgotten? Then I could just go back and say, well, you know what? I also realized that maybe we could be mindful of this and this and that. Would the audience, I mean, if they feel if they got it, if they understood that I skipped a point or forgotten a point, is it still okay? Would they be able to perceive it and absorb it, or would that cause them like not trusting what's to come next? So I'd rather just keep my mouth shut and whatever is forgotten is done.
Well, I mean, I suppose there's a couple of points there. One, how important is the thing you forgot? If the thing you forgot is the key fundamental thing that separates you from somebody else, then obviously it has to be covered. If it's something that's really not important, well, But the other thing is, people, depending on your audience, of course, normally value authenticity rather than structured sort of, like scripted, something that's really difficult to listen to or believe because it's just delivered time and time again. It's you need to understand your audience are forgiving. They understand you're a person. I don't know, like who are you pitching to, investors? I mean, you're not going for an acting role, are you? Where you have to remember your lines. You need to realize what you're doing. You're out there pitching, your business or, mental health and generally the audience that you're talking to value what you do, I would say. Is it a topic they value or not?
Yeah, definitely, yes. Yeah, but if it's just one bullet out of one bullet point out of maybe 6, 7.
That's it.
So you miss on that. And then sometimes I feel
perhaps you're better off to say, look, I did actually miss this, which if we get time, I'll cover at the end. But it's kind of like, if you actually use that as an opportunity, you might be better to say, hey, we're going to have a conversation later on about something. You know what I mean? Like, this is an opportunity to seed a conversation later on with somebody. The thing is, if you lay it all out on the table, if you give everyone everything, then there's no reason to come and talk to you again. It's like, I'm going to take it away and I want to think about it now. Yeah. And when I take it away and think about it, what happens? That analysis paralysis, start to overthink it. But sometimes it's what's an easy decision for somebody at the end of your pitch? What's the typical value of what you sell? $100, $500, $1,000.
You mean the audience? You mean coming to
what's the typical value? At the end of the day, what would they pay?
Yeah, I'd say an average, because it depends on the workshop or the course, but there's an average of $250 US dollars.
So what's an easier decision, right? Pay $250 and sign up for the workshop, or come up and talk to you afterwards. For me, as an audience member.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe it's, hey, look, I forgot to talk about this. I really, we've run out of time. But if you'd like to send me an email,
let's touch base. Yeah.
That's it. Maybe another smaller step, if you do, is really going to, make that decision-making process easy. Like I said, you only step people one step at a time. All through your pitch, you're only going to take people one step at a time. They walk in, maybe they know you, maybe they don't. First step is they get to know you. Second step is they understand what you do. Third step is they understand that it's relevant for them. Fourth step is, you know what I mean? Every step has to be hit. And it's like, maybe they get to the end, they think you're good. A little bit of a closer connection. Okay, now $250, easy. They're easy steps. It's easy to spend, I don't know if you've ever, got some money for a birthday or a Christmas gift or something like that and chucked it in your purse and carried it around, and, it's sort of, it's easy to spend a little bit at a time. It's just gone all of a sudden, so it's the same with this. You just need these easy, short steps. Very good.
Okay. Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, we're 10 minutes over. So I appreciate you all stopping by. And I really look forward to connecting maybe on LinkedIn. So if you've seen my LinkedIn, thank you, Chris. Merry Christmas to you as well. And thank you, Chris. But yeah, we might connect on LinkedIn, but I've very much enjoyed this afternoon with you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Really enjoyed it. Tom.
All right, mate. You too. Take care. See ya.